What we see here on COMEX, huge deliveries, metal coming in and coming off of the exchange. All of it points to the same thing to me, and that is a new system, a gradual reset, a system that is moving away from what was to a new system that will be dominated, as Zoltan Pozsar calls it, Bretton Woods 3, commodities and blockchain, and the marriage of those two things, if I had to guess, is where we are moving in what is now not such. It's moving at a faster speed. It started out very slow. It's starting to accelerate. And I think by this time next year, it will be much stronger. I really do. In fact, one of the slides I played today in my speech, the last slide, was Judy Shelton on my show, who was Trump's nominee to run the Fed in 2016. Many think she'll replace Powell this time. And she said to me, and I played the slide on my video with her, that she believes, after discussions with President Trump, that on July 4th, 2026, he will issue, she says he's going to make a huge deal of that, the 250th year anniversary of the country, that she believes he will issue starting with 50-year treasuries denominated and redeemable at maturity in gold. You look at this year, gold up 30+%, the treasury up 1.5% so far on a year-over-year basis, but the dollar's down 10%. The dollar is falling, interest rates are rising, gold is going higher, but we see a trend of repatriation and delivery, whether it be the commercial banks repatriating their gold from the Bank of England and the New York Fed, or massive players draining the LBMA and huge deliveries coming off the COMEX. For the first time ever since November, the United States is a net importer of gold. Who is importing nearly $100 billion worth of gold since November into the United States? Into COMEX, most of it leaving the exchange. So if I were to encapsulate everything I just said, it's a shift away from Western dominance. It's a shift away from treasuries. It's a shift away from dollars in favor of commodities traded over a blockchain network. That's ultimately where I think we are going, whether it be what we see happening in China with the internationalization of the yuan and the ability to take delivery off of a series of now multi-jurisdictional hubs for the Shanghai Metals Exchange that they're building, and first one in Hong Kong, next one in Saudi Arabia, and a slew of them throughout Asia and Africa and ultimately South America, or whether
we're witnessing a seismic move away from U.S. dollar hegemony. Nations and institutions are retreating from treasuries and instead embracing tangible assets, especially gold, often on blockchain-tracked systems. China's internationalized yuan is now redeemable in gold through the Shanghai Metals Exchange. Multi-jurisdictional vaults are being set up globally, Hong Kong, Saudi Arabia, and beyond. These decentralized hubs allow for real asset settlement. On COMEX, metal is pouring in, but just as quickly being removed. The entire global financial architecture is slowly being re-engineered, moving toward what analysts call Bretton Woods 3, a commodity-backed, blockchain-integrated economic system.
What we see here on COMEX, huge deliveries, metal coming in and coming off of the exchange. All of it points to the same thing to me, and that is a new system, a gradual reset, a system that is moving away from what was to a new system that will be dominated, as Zoltan Pozsar calls it, Bretton Woods 3, commodities and blockchain, and the marriage of those two things, if I had to guess, is where we are moving in what is now not such. It's moving at a faster speed. It started out very slow. It's starting to accelerate. And I think by this time next year, it will be much stronger. I really do. In fact, one of the slides I played today in my speech, the last slide, was Judy Shelton on my show, who was Trump's nominee to run the Fed in 2016. Many think she'll replace Powell this time. And she said to me, and I played the slide on my video with her, that she believes, after discussions with President Trump, that on July 4th, 2026, he will issue, she says he's going to make a huge deal of that, the 250th year anniversary of the country, that she believes he will issue starting with 50-year treasuries denominated and redeemable at maturity in gold. So I think we're moving into a system where gold is being re-monetized, being brought back into the monetary system, and a move away from promises by a country that is insolvent and has done too much to anger the world through weaponizing of its systems.
Yeah, I think probably one of the dumbest things that they did was stealing those treasuries from Russia.
Right.
That accelerated
Of
exactly
course.
what you're talking
Well,
about.
and look at it from the perspective of the rest of the world. First, I want to say, like, I'm a patriot. This country has done more for me than I ever deserved. I'm the least likely person to be sitting here having a discussion on economics with you than anyone I know. But because of hard work, and as my sixth grade teacher used to say, stick-to-itiveness, and the opportunities this country gave me, I thank God every day I'm an American who was born here. However,
Speculation is growing around gold re-entering the global monetary system. Judy Shelton, former Trump Fed nominee, hinted at new 50-year U.S. Treasuries redeemable in gold by 2026. As America's debt soars past $200 trillion when including off-balance sheet liabilities, faith in fiat erodes. Weaponizing the dollar, like freezing Russian assets, has made U.S. instruments politically risky. Countries now fear holding dollar reserves that could be seized or devalued. The Global South is especially wary. For many, trust in the current system has been permanently broken. In response, gold is being repositioned not as an investment, but as financial insurance.
look at it from the rest of the world's perspective. Look at Iraq as an example. We invaded it 22 years ago under the pretenses that there were weapons of mass destruction. We're sorry, they're not there, and we destroyed your country. We toppled your regime. But guess what? We're still here. Hi, 22 years later, sanctioning their banks for trading with Iran. And so much so that they've made it angered the Iraqis so much that they've, as of January 1st of last year, there are no green dollar bills anywhere in the country. They're gone out of every bank. And if you own a business in Iraq and trade in dollars, you'll go to jail and they'll seize your business. So, the point of it is that the rest of the world might look at us as being hypocritical, that the world reserve currency's prerogative is not to be judge, jury, and executioner. You're supposed to be impartial. And many people would look at the things that we have done and say, no, they're no better off than President Putin. And I'm not passing judgment on the war in Ukraine and Russia. But what I am saying is that why is it our prerogative to pass judgment on what he does or what they do? And yet what we do arguably is every bit as egregious by many people around the globe's estimation. And yet we're the ones who can say, no, that $5 billion in treasuries that you bought, that we guarantee that we're holding, we're going to default on it and say, nah, it's not yours anymore. But guess what? We're going to give it in the form of weapons to the Ukraine, country in the middle of a war against. How do you come back from that? And you know what? The European Union is no better. They, instead of outright confiscating treasuries, they have European treasuries and they confiscated all of the interest. And instead of giving them the interest, they, again, gave it in the form of loans to the Ukraine.
America's financial dominance is increasingly seen as coercive. From Iraq to Russia, U.S. actions have raised global suspicion. Iraq was invaded under false pretenses, and 22 years later, the U.S. still exerts control, now sanctioning Iraqi banks for trading with Iran. The backlash? Iraq purged the U.S. dollar from its banking system. Across the globe, nations view the U.S. not as a fair arbiter, but as judge, jury, and executioner. And when nations like Russia have their U.S. treasuries seized and converted into weapons for Ukraine, it cements the image of Western financial tools as weapons, not neutral instruments.
So the point of it is that when you are the world reserve currency, you should be impartial and you should be held to the same standard as everyone else. And I think that's pissed off the world, and rightfully so. I'll say it again. I love this country, and I thank God every day I was born here, and I'm still very proud to be an American. Thank God, actually. But you have to look at it from the opposite side. It's like you're accused of murdering your wife, and the attorney says to you, Steve, I trust you. I don't even need to know what the plaintiff's argument is. I just want to hear what you have to say, and that's what we're going to go on. You would be foolish not to understand the other argument. And I think the other argument is that we're not impartial. We're just as bad as other countries, if not worse, in their estimation. So why would anyone want to take our dollars that are being inflated or hold our treasuries to benefit us, which can not only be taken or sanctioned, but you look at the actions of the Federal Reserve, who would come in and buy treasuries, right? So like they just did a few weeks ago, they print money. They bought 48 trillion in 3, 10, and 30-year treasuries. So they print money to buy the treasuries, to lower rates, But the point of it is a country like Saudi Arabia has to use sweat and effort to pull oil out of the ground and sell it to us for dollars, which we can create, and then put their reserves in treasuries, which we can buy with created dollars. It's just the whole system is coming to an end because for a long time, even though our currency wasn't backed by anything, we were trusted and revered. And I would argue, largely from the actions of the last administration, which were too stupid to be stupid, this administration is doing the same thing, only they're not as stupid and overt as the previous was. But for example, by Trump saying to the BRICS nations when they're having their meeting this week, any of you who join in, you'll get another 10% tariff. That's not a tariff. That's a sanction. A tariff is something you put on to protect your manufacturing. That's not what he's doing. He's pissing off the rest of the world on a different level and cementing and reinforcing the mentality that's brought them all together to begin with. And that is coercion, bullying, sanctioning.
Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov recently unveiled Enbridge, a new bridge settlement network. It clears trades in just 7 seconds, with a 98% reduction in fees using local currencies. It is now active across 38% of global GDP. Unlike SWIFT, Enbridge bypasses the dollar, euro, and pound. Gold underpins the new system, not as currency but as the asset backing the value. Multiple nations store gold in regional hubs and settle imbalances in physical metal. BRICS nations, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and Belt and Road partners representing most of humanity are flocking to this new system. It's decentralized, fast, and immune to Western sanctions.
By a country who is running the largest debt that the world has ever seen, that has $200 trillion in debt when you talk off-balance sheet Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, government military pensions. People need to know a trillion seconds ago was 31,688 years ago. So we are wholly broke and insolvent. We're hypocritical by everyone else's estimation, and we are passing rules to the rest of the world that if you don't align with us, well, it's more of the same, sanctions. And I think that's growing old on a large portion of the world's community. The one thing that I talked about in my presentation, Steve, that no one is talking about is the comment that Sergei Lavrov just came out with, and that has to do with their new bridge technology, which is the M-Bridge, which they've just rolled out to 38% of global GDP in the Asiatic countries, those in Southeast Asia, and 5 countries in the Middle East, that they are using to internationalize their yuan. A lot of talk lately about the yuan, which is now convertible into gold through the Shanghai Exchange. But this is the precursor to the new BRICS settlement system, which we've already been told by Dilma Rousseff, the former president of Brazil and the head of the BRICS and Development Bank, that they've agreed upon in principle. The Shanghai Metals Exchange is opening up a series of vaults throughout the world, multi-jurisdictional in Asia and Africa. The first one is Hong Kong, the next one's Saudi Arabia. They'll be in the Middle East and throughout the world so that they can internationalize the yuan. But the one thing that no one's talking about that everyone should is Sergei Lavrov came out, he's the Russian foreign minister, and said that we are opening this technology, this bridge technology, up to non-BRICS members, but it is not compatible with the pound, the euro, or the dollar. Think the Belt Road Initiative, 75% of human population, 50% of GDP. They're not in the BRICS, they're aligned with the BRICS. Think the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, the largest regional military and financial group in the world, 50% of human population, 35% of global GDP. Think the BRICS.
The financial reset is already underway, but it's not a Hollywood-style collapse. It's a chess match, and the board is nearly set. Western dominance is no longer trusted. The SWIFT system is outdated. BRICS and allies are building an economic ecosystem where local currencies trade freely and gold settles the imbalances. Treasuries are being replaced. Trust is shifting. Every step from vault repatriations to blockchain commodity trade brings us closer to a new world order. It may feel slow now, but within a year, this shift will accelerate. The West may not be ready, but the rest of the world already is.
All of these together, the Eurasian Economic Union, these countries in Southeast Asia, these Asiatic countries in the Middle East that have already signed up, this settlement system settles in 7 seconds with a 98% reduction in fees. The SWIFT system takes 3 to 5 days to clear, and you have to convert to dollars. And back here, you use your local currency, you trade it over the bridge network. In 7 seconds, it clears, and it is not compatible with the West. Everyone says the BRICS aren't big enough. Okay, Well, Lavrov says we're opening up to non-BRICS nations. Think the Belt Road. Think the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Think of all of these countries that comprise pretty damn well near 90% of human population. 3 of the 4 largest nuclear arsenals. The center of manufacturing with China and Vietnam as the 48th country that just applied to the BRICS. Think of all of this stuff, and now you open it up to these players where you trade in your local currency to stimulate your own economy. You don't have to go back and forth through the SWIFT system into dollars. You settle imbalances in gold through a series of multi-jurisdictional metals facilities where every country puts a little bit of their gold in all of these hubs. And now you settle any imbalances once a quarter or once a month in gold instead of using treasuries. In essence, gold isn't replacing currency. It's replacing what backs the currency, treasuries.
Yeah.
So every country uses their own currency, which makes them keep their monetary house in order and settles imbalances in gold. And this, to me, is the beginning of a new trend. This is the beginning of a reset.
Yeah.
It's a reset that's slow moving. Everyone thinks reset means like a video game. You press reset and it starts over. No, reset has already been pressed, but it's the slow moving chessboard, all the pieces being put into place. So when it finally does actually fully reset, there's nothing the West can do about it. And I believe that in my soul. I just gave a 45-minute presentation that encapsulates that. Kind of hard to do right here, but everything I'm seeing, everything Steve tells me, that's where we're going.